Okay, so like everyone's talking about AI, right? It's everywhere you look, but
Yeah.
uh did anyone stop to think about the security part? I mean, besides like those sci-fi movies where the robots decide to take over, is anyone thinking about that?
Well, maybe those movies are onto something. There's this new report out from Orca Security, and honestly, it has me a little worried. And it's not even about robots taking over, it's about us, all of us, and how we're kind of sleepwalking to a hacker's paradise if we're not careful.
This Orca report, it's not exactly sunshine and rainbows, is it? It seems like they're saying that everyone's so busy jumping on the AI bandwagon that they're forgetting to, put the brakes on and think about the security implications. Like, did you see that stat about companies building AI stuff without, like, basic security in place?
Yeah, 56%. Pretty hard to miss that one. That really shows you how big of a disconnect we're talking about here. Imagine, right? It's like someone's building this amazing skyscraper, the best views, super fancy elevators, the works. But then they just completely forget to put in a good, strong foundation. It might look amazing for a minute until that first big storm hits.
Okay, yeah, that's not a pretty picture. And this report it makes it very clear this isn't some far-off problem. This is happening right now.
Yeah.
They found that almost every company, like a crazy 98%, using Amazon SageMaker, that platform, they haven't disabled root access.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for me? What does that even mean in, like, normal people speak?
Okay, so imagine this. You're not just leaving your front door unlocked, right? You're leaving it wide open. And not only that, you've put a giant neon sign on your lawn that says, "Come on in, everyone, the key's under the mat." That's basically what not disabling root access is like. It's giving anyone with bad intentions a free pass to walk right into your entire system.
Wait, so this isn't even like some complicated hack. It's just bad design. Are these companies really that clueless about this stuff?
I don't think it's always about being clueless. It's more about, well, priorities, I guess you could say. The pressure is on to innovate, to be the first one out there with the newest, coolest AI tool. And sometimes those basic security steps, they get lost in the shuffle. It's like they might be aware of the risks, but in the grand scheme of things, they see it as an acceptable trade-off to be first.
So it's like choosing a flimsy door with a fancy handle over a strong one with a basic lock because, hey, at least it looks good, right? But it gets worse, right? It's not just about leaving the digital door open, is it? This report, it also mentioned something about vulnerable AI packages being used by, like, most companies.
Yeah.
What's it all about?
Yeah, so we're talking about a whopping 62% of organizations using AI packages that we know, like it's documented, that have vulnerabilities. Think of it this way. Every piece of software, right, it's built with lines of code, but sometimes there are flaws in those lines. It's like having a weak spot in the walls of your house?
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
So these weak spots, they're called CVEs. It stands for common vulnerabilities and exposures. And basically, there are these hackers out there, and they know about these weak spots, and they can use them to get into your systems. And in the case of PyTorch, which the report highlights, we could be talking about something called remote code execution.
Remote code execution. Okay, yeah, that definitely sounds ominous. So wait, we're not just talking about some data breaches here. This is bigger than that.
This is way bigger. We're talking about the very real possibility of giving someone complete and total control over your systems. And that includes those AI models themselves. Imagine someone hijacks your AI-powered security system, not exactly the outcome anyone's hoping for, right?
Okay, you're making me want to unplug every device in my house. And speaking of leaving things vulnerable, the report also mentioned something about myth-configured accounts on those platforms, specifically Azure OpenAI. They threw out a stat, something like 27% of companies are just leaving themselves wide open on that front, too. That's a head-scratcher.
Right. You would think something as simple as securing those accounts would be a no-brainer. It's often as easy as, like, checking a few boxes in your settings. It's not even about complex code or expensive security software. We're talking about, like, literally flipping a switch from easy access to secure access.
Okay, so why aren't companies making that tiny effort? I'm not a tech expert, but that just seems like common sense. Is that just negligence, or is there something else going on?
I think it's a little of both, to be honest. Some of it might be that companies just aren't aware, but a lot of it also goes back to what we were talking about earlier. That pressure to innovate quickly, security. A lot of times it's seen as this extra step, something that can be dealt with later. And later, well, a lot of times that just means never.
So they're basically so excited to, like, show off their new AI toy that they forget to read the instructions. The part that's like, hey, by the way, this thing could be hacked if you don't do this, this, and this.
Exactly. And it's not even just about them like neglecting the basics. Sometimes it's about the platforms themselves, like take Google Vertex AI. This report, it calls them out for not having default encryption at rest, that's kind of a big deal.
Okay, I'm going to need a little help with that one. Encryption at rest. What is that? It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It's less like James Bond and more like common sense data protection. Imagine you've got this diary, right? And you write down all your deepest, darkest secrets in it, and
Yeah.
then you just leave it, like on a park bench. Anyone could just pick it up and read it, right?
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture.
So encryption at rest, it's like putting a lock on that diary. It takes all that information, scrambles it up, so even if someone gets their hands on it, they can't read any of it without the key. And in this case, with Google Vertex AI, not having that lock in place by default, well, it's like leaving your diary, or in this case, it could be really sensitive data just out in the open for anyone to see.
So wait, are you saying that Google and these other platforms are basically like setting us up for failure?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's more like they're trying to make their platforms really user-friendly, which is good, right? But sometimes that means, well, they prioritize convenience over having the maximum level of security right out of the box. Think about it. It's like when you get a new phone and it comes with a default password. It's easy to set up, but is it the most secure way to do it? Probably not.
So it's still on us. We can't just assume that these platforms are going to take care of everything when it comes to security.
Absolutely. You have to be proactive.
Okay, so how do we do that? Where do we even start?
Well, knowing about things like the OWASP machine learning security top 10 risks is a good start.
The OWASP? What now?
OWASP, it stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. They put out this list, the top 10, and it's basically like a greatest hits of all the things that could go wrong in AI security,
Yeah.
all compiled by, people who've seen it all.
So is it more like a cheat sheet for hackers? Or is it more like a warning siren for the rest of us?
It's definitely a warning siren. It lays out the most critical vulnerabilities that hackers could try to exploit. Things like data poisoning.
Data poisoning. Okay, that sounds bad.
Yeah, it's where an attacker tries to, mess with the data that's used to train the AI models.
So you end up with a poisoned model?
Basically, yeah. It could make the AI make bad decisions. And then there are things like adversarial attacks.
Adversarial attacks. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one. It sounds like some kind of military strategy.
Well, it's kind of like that, but in the digital world. Imagine someone's trying to trick the AI system into making the wrong decision.
Tricking it. How?
They might subtly manipulate the input data so the AI gets confused and makes a mistake. Think of those image recognition systems. Researchers have shown that even tiny changes to an image, changes that we would never even notice, can completely throw off the AI and make it misidentify something.
So you could have like a self-driving car that thinks a stop sign is a speed limit sign or something like that.
That's the general idea, yeah. And that's just one example.
Okay. Okay, everyone take a deep breath. This is a lot to take in.
Mm.
But we're not headed for a robot apocalypse just yet, are we? There are things that we can do about all this, right?
The Orca report, it did offer some hope, didn't it? It wasn't all doom and gloom.
Definitely not all doom and gloom. I mean, think about it. Awareness is a huge first step. Just knowing about these risks, that's half the battle. And Orca, they actually do outline some pretty concrete steps that companies can take to reduce these risks. And the good news is you don't have to be some kind of cybersecurity genius to put a lot of these measures in place.
So what can these companies do? Give us the highlights. Where do we even start with all of this? Well, a big part of it is shifting the mindset. Instead of thinking of security as something you tack on at the end, it needs to be security by design, baked into every single stage of the AI development lifecycle, from the very beginning, from the design phase, all the way through to deployment and even after that.
So it's like you can't just sprinkle some security on top at the end. It needs to be part of the recipe from the get-go.
Exactly. And another big one is access control, making sure that the only people who can get to your sensitive data and systems are the people who are supposed to have access. Remember our example from before about root access on Amazon SageMaker? Yeah, that is a perfect example of where proper access control can make all the difference.
Right, so no more leaving the keys under the welcome mat. It seems like a lot of this, it just boils down to basic cyber hygiene, but for the AI world.
You got it. It's really about applying those fundamental security principles that we already know, like having strong passwords, using things like multi-factor authentication, making sure you're keeping your software updated. All that stuff still matters, maybe even more so now with all the challenges AI brings into the mix.
And probably staying informed, right, about the latest threats and, all those vulnerabilities, because it seems like this is a landscape that's changing really, really fast.
Absolutely, you got to stay up to date. Knowing the latest security best practices and being aware of, like, any new threats that pop up, that's crucial.
Yeah.
It's really like anything else, the more you know, the better you're going to be at protecting yourself.
So it's not just on the companies making these AI tools, it's on all of us using them to, be a little bit cautious. Think about the potential risks. It's still kind of like the Wild West out there, isn't it? Everyone's so excited to jump on the AI bandwagon
Yeah,
that maybe we're not thinking about what could be hiding around the corner.
I like that analogy, the Wild West. And just like back then, not everyone wearing a badge was who they said they were, right? Well, not every AI application out there is as concerned about your security as they might want you to think.
Okay, that's a little scary, but good to know. So, knowing all of this, what's like the one thing you really want our listeners to remember? If they only take away one thing from this whole deep dive into AI security, what would it be?
The biggest takeaway, I think it's that AI security, it's not someone else's problem. It's everyone's responsibility. We all have a part to play here.
It's not just on the tech companies
Yeah.
or, like the cybersecurity people.
Right. It's on all of us. We have
Right.
to be more aware, ask the right questions, and just demand better security practices from the tools and platforms that we're all using.
This isn't just some like abstract problem for the future, is it? This is happening right now. This report, all these statistics we keep talking about, it's a real wake-up call.
Oh, absolutely. And it's only going to get more important as AI becomes even more ingrained in our everyday lives. Think about it. We're already relying on AI for some pretty huge stuff, like medical diagnoses, financial decisions. What happens if those systems get compromised?
Okay, now you're just being mean, making me paranoid. But you're right, this goes way beyond just data breaches now. We're talking about real-world harm. That's pretty scary.
No, you're exactly right. That's why we have to keep talking about this. The more we do, the more people are aware, the better prepared we all are to tackle these challenges.
Well said. So to everyone listening, stay curious, stay informed, and maybe, just maybe, think twice before you put all your trust in that shiny new AI-powered whatever it is.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more you know about AI security, the safer you're going to be. You can navigate this whole new world confidently and responsibly.
And on that note, that wraps up this deep dive into the world of AI security. Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, stay curious.